Hello, everyone. Welcome to the final, yes, that's right, the final Adcom conversation we're going to be having here on MBA Spotlight 2021 from GMAT Club. I want to thank everyone who's been attending and who's had the opportunity to attend over the last few weeks. Before I get into today's fantastic guest, we're going to just remind you guys that if you haven't already, please click like and subscribe to GMAT Club's YouTube channel. The opportunity to win a lot of prizes is there, but of course you also get 7-day free access to GMAT Club's test if you do in fact like. We're going to start this conversation with the lovely Christy Heaton from Kellogg School of Management. Very, very excited to hear everything about Kellogg's program and her experiences about it. So as always, we have the questions and comments that are going to be moderated by members of Kellogg's team, Amanda and Sergio in the YouTube's comment section. So definitely get all your questions there. And we have a bunch of questions lined up here as well. So without further ado, I'm going to take myself off and hand it over to Christy.
Well, wonderful. Thanks for having me. I didn't realize I was bringing up the rear, so it's a lot of pressure to keep you guys entertained this morning and make sure I deliver. I don't know what other people have done, so I feel the pressure. My name is Christy Heaton, and I am an Associate Director of Admissions for the full-time MBA program at Kellogg. I've been here for 8 years now, and I focus on our 2-year MBA program and our JD MBA program. My hope today is to kind of quickly go through a presentation. We were laughing earlier before the presentation started about how hard it is to just sit and listen to somebody talk and share slides. So over the past year, I certainly have gotten good at being quick and succinct. I hope today I'm succinct, and then leave plenty of time for the questions for you guys at the end. My goal with this presentation is always to give a pretty general high-level overview, and then to let you, the applicant, really decide what you want to dive in further, what resonates with you as an applicant about Kellogg, and where you want to spend your time researching and talking to students. So we'll be pretty high level here. With that, I'm going to go ahead and just get us started. So I think the one thing I like to kind of start off the presentation with is a question that I'm asked every single time I talk to somebody or do a presentation. Super basic, but the big question here is really why Kellogg, right? I think when you're looking at a top MBA program, everybody kind of wants to know why you would want to go to that school. I think at Kellogg, we believe that the value of an MBA is more important today than it ever is. We're living in unprecedented and crazy different times, and this world is constantly changing, and we really believe that we equip our students to be the leaders that today are needed in the roles that they're going into right after school, but also 10 years down the road. There are truly, I think when we look at Kellogg overall, there are 3 main areas that we think really distinguishes and sets Kellogg leaders apart. So the first is being, a place of great creativity that really spurs innovation. I think this past year alone was a testament to the adaptability of our school and reinforcing kind of that long legacy of forward thinking and adaptability. The second is truly the commitment to collaboration. Means that our achievements, what we kind of recognize and know at Kellogg, is that our achievements are greater as a team and collaborating than we could ever accomplish alone. So we do have this unwavering commitment to building diverse teams and sparking new ideas and strengthening the talent while creating kind of these lasting bonds and connections within the classes that you're a part of. And then the last is really an eye toward empathy. Our Kellogg leaders and students really engage and want to make a meaningful impact in the communities and places that they're a part of. So I think, when you look at Kellogg students, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later, but this eye towards kind of empathy and impact is really a unique part of your Kellogg experience. And I think what you'll notice is that these are evident, these qualities are evident within our community and are really serving as kind of the foundation to everything that we do. So I want to start by we're talking about just the full-time program today. So we have an executive MBA program and a part-time evening and weekend program, but today we're focusing just on the full-time MBA. And in our full-time MBA, we actually have a whole portfolio of programs that you can apply to. They're all full-time, meaning you are not working while you are pursuing your MBA in this capacity. But we have different formats and deliveries because we know people who are applying to Kellogg are all coming with different strengths and weaknesses and things that they want to really get out of their MBA. So the first program that we'll talk about is a one-year MBA program. This is really designed for people who are kind of already set on a specific career path. You kind of have an idea of what you want to be doing. You're liking the work that you're doing, but you want to get your MBA on an accelerated pace. So there are some courses, statistics, operations, marketing, and economics that you have to have had prior to doing this program. It's 4 quarters to complete. So our students start in June and then they finish the program the following June. The nice part about this program is you get to experience Chicago in the summer, which is gorgeous, beautiful, the best time to be in the city. You are on campus with our 1-year and Triple M students, and you're taking classes and really finishing up that core curriculum. And then you fold into the 2Y second-year students. You kind of fold into taking electives with the second-year students for your following 3 quarters. With the 1-year MBA program, when we think about career switches and searches, our career management center will often talk about it as being a 3-legged stool. So in your search, you have the industry you're working in, the functional area, and then the location that you're going to go to. I think what's important to think about with the 1-year MBA program is you can change one of those aspects pretty easily. 2 of them gets a little more complicated. If you're blowing up your whole career, you really should be looking at a 2-year MBA, the full-time MBA program, because you have that summer internship between your first and your second year. And in the 1-year program, you just don't have that internship and the time to kind of make that big of a pivot. So we tend to see people who want to kind of be accelerating their career doing the 1-year MBA. Next, we have the 2-year MBA. This is what most people think of when they think of it doing and pursuing an MBA. It's 2 years. We're on the quarter system. So you have 3 quarters in your first year and 3 quarters in your second year with that summer internship between those 2 years. This program is really designed for anyone and everybody. It's designed for career accelerators. It's also designed for people who want to do a completely new career, or people who came from a non-traditional background and really want to get smart on business skills, right? So we see everything in this program, 2 years to complete. The next 2 are our dual degree programs. We have a Triple M program where students are getting a Master of Science in Design Innovation from the Siegel Design Institute at the McCormick School of Engineering. It's a mouthful. It's 1 additional quarter to get both of these degrees. So you're getting your full MBA and your full Master of Science in Design Innovation, and it's 1 additional quarter. We tend to see students interested in this program have an interest in design thinking, design consulting, design innovation, product management, product marketing. It truly is the balance of using left brain and right brain thinking in that program. You are fully integrated, so you will take student classes at the engineering school as a Triple M cohort. So with your 65 Triple M students, you will take classes together at the engineering school. But on the Kellogg side, you are mixed in with students from all of the other programs and do not take classes just as a Triple M cohort. The next is our JD MBA program, which is an integrated 3-year program. So you get your full JD and your full MBA in 3 years, as opposed to 5 if you did them separately. Very high level. First year is at law school. Second year is at Kellogg. Third year, mostly back at the law school. You do not have to take the LSAT to apply to this program. You can apply with just the GMAT or the GRE. And on average, we see about half of our students going into business and half of our students going into law. And then last, our newest program to the portfolio is the MBAI program. This is a brand new program just starting for the first time now. It is an accelerated degree option that focuses really on the intersection of management and technical experience. It's a custom designed blended coursework that combines business strategy and technology. And it's really meant for students who are looking to lead organizations, finding competitive advantages through the strategic use of technology. It's a 4-quarter program. It does include an industry immersion component, and it's a dual degree, or a joint degree. I'm sorry, not a dual degree. Okay, so I started off with that because from here on out, everything that I talk about is really going to be the same regardless of the program that you're choosing. The first thing when you think about our curriculum is we are a general management program. So we do have a core curriculum. Most of our students are completing that core curriculum in their first year if they're in the 2-year program. In the 1-year program, you're usually wrapping up your core in that first quarter. The idea here and the reason that we have a core curriculum is that we really believe it's important for everybody who's graduating to have the same foundational knowledge, not to just come in and only study one thing. We want everybody to understand and have the basic understanding of business and how it works, so that if you're going to pursue a career in finance, we really want you to understand how operations and marketing all come together and impact your organization that you're leading, even if you're looking at it through a finance lens. Outside of that core, our students really pursue what it is that they want. I like to say no two students pick the same path. We have majors, so you can complete a major if you want. It's the core class in that academic department plus 4 more, so it takes some intentionality to pursue a major. And then we also have pathways. The pathways are sort of like tour guides through the elective options, is the way I like to think of them. So if you're interested in data analytics, for example, when there are over 200 electives to be picking from, it can sometimes be overwhelming and difficult to know, how do I build up knowledge in data analytics? So the idea behind these pathways is the professors who are overseeing those pathways take a look at the whole elective curriculum and they say, if you're interested in gaining expertise in this area, here's the list of classes we suggest you take. It doesn't mean you have to take all of the classes in the pathway. You might take just 1 or 2, but it's a way to help you kind of narrow down from 200 plus electives to really kind of what it is that you would want to be taking if you wanted to build expertise in one of those areas. New this year, we just announced a DEI pathway, which we're really excited about. We already had some classes in there, but given the interest of our students and the passion that they have and always have had around these efforts, they introduced a pathway this year, which we're really excited about. I won't go into it now, but within the curriculum, there are extensive opportunities to do experiential learning, to do global immersion trips. So the nice thing about the curriculum at Kellogg is that if you have a preference for experiential learning classes, you have the opportunity to focus more on experiential learning. You'll find a mix of case classes, lecture classes, experiential learning classes. There's a little bit of everything, and we really leave it to our professors to decide how they teach the content of their course. I think another important part that I always want to highlight when talking about Kellogg is really thinking about kind of the culture and the experience that you're going to have outside of the classroom. I think, as I mentioned earlier, innovation, collaboration, and empathy are really at the core of Kellogg and who we are. I think when you hear people describe students, you'll often hear people describe Kellogg students as low ego, high impact. Our students are really passionate about who they are and what they're bringing to their community and being a part of the community. So you will find students are really engaged. There's over 120 student clubs where our students are taking active leadership roles and really being a part of the communities that they're a part of. They work really hard. They participate in case competitions, but there are no sharp elbows. You'll hear stories time and time again of students paying it forward, working and helping their peers in a career search. Our second year students do interview prep groups where they spend a ton of time prepping the first year students to get their internship opportunities lined up. So I think one of the things I love about Kellogg is our students really realize and recognize that their experience is beyond just the individual and my individual experience. They recognize the power of community and the power of community at Kellogg and the power of community in those organizations and groups and places that they work beyond. And I think that's really a unique aspect of Kellogg that I would encourage you to learn more about by talking to students. I'll also note here that we are located in Evanston, Illinois, which is the first suburb north of the city of Chicago. So we like to say we have the best of both worlds. The majority of our students are living in Evanston, walking back and forth to the global hub, living in apartment buildings in the same complex as each other. So there are really low barriers to getting together and getting to know each other. but they take advantage of all that Chicago has to offer. It's a quick train ride away. There's an inter-campus shuttle that goes between the Evanston campus and the Chicago campus. On average, our students are going into the city 1 to 2 times a week, depending on what they have going on. That might be a consulting project they're working on, or just going to a new restaurant that opened to have a fun dinner in the city. But they really do take advantage of living in a community and having a big city nearby. The next thing I want to talk about is our alumni network. I think when you're looking at programs and thinking about where you want to go, it's not just a community that you're joining for 1 or 2 or 3 years, right? This is a community you're going to have for your lifetime. And I like to say at Kellogg, it's not just that number that's impressive, right? 65,000 people is a lot of people. It's a big network that you're joining. But that number doesn't mean anything if it's not a connected group, if it's not an alumni community that is engaged and wanting to network and stay in touch and help current students the way that they were helped when they were students. And so I think this is, again, another place where you will hear similar stories about reaching out to alums and being really impressed by the outreach and the connections that they were able to develop as students. Working in admissions, we are always astounded at how generous our alums are. They interview our student or our applicants. They participate in panels. They call our admitted students. They are really generous with their time to applicants, and they're really generous to the time to our students. And they continue those connections and networks that they created when they were students well beyond just being in the walls of the Global Hub. We'll talk a little bit about the Career Management Center. I'm not going to go too in depth here because the website does a great job talking through all of the different programming and resources that are available to our students. The one thing that I'll highlight here is that just like the curriculum is not a one-size-fits-all approach, the same holds true for the Career Management Center. So they truly try to meet each student where he might be or she might be in their career search, right? Try to meet you where you are in your search and provide the resources and tools that you might need for your individual search. Some students will use their career coaches quite frequently. Others will use them 1 or 2 times. It's really going to depend what you need out of your own independent search. Our students are going all over the world. We always kind of have a chuckle in our office about, I think there's a perception that if you step foot in Evanston, Illinois, you're never going to be able to leave Chicago. Most recently, it was about 29% or 30% of our class that stayed in the Midwest. Part of that is there are great jobs in Chicago. It's a big city. Some people opt to do their MBA in Chicago because Chicago's home and that's where they want to stay. But you can see from the map that really our students are going everywhere and are recruited to go everywhere. That West Coast number has really ticked up over the years, I think part and parcel because of technology, and the interest in technology and recruiting from Kellogg is very active from that space. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about your application. I think I've been talking for 17 minutes. I'm keeping an eye on the clock, so I want to get to your questions. The application for this next cycle has not yet opened. I'm anticipating that it should open within the next little bit here. I don't have an exact date, but should be coming very, very soon. And if you're registered, you have your email registered with Kellogg, you'll get a notification as soon as it goes live. What I can tell you is the application is largely similar to what it has been in the past years. And the way that we evaluate and look at our students is really the same. It hasn't changed. So, we talk a lot about what we value in Kellogg students, and that's sort of listed on the screen here. The intention here is not that we don't expect that we are bringing people in who have all of these things right off the bat, right? But if you don't have diversity in your network, is that something that you're looking to achieve and you want to work with, right? Do you want to work on diverse teams? Are you eager to collaborate and engage in a community of peers? So these are things that we hope when you read resonate with you and lead you to believe, yes, if this is what Kellogg values and this resonates with me, then I probably will be a good fit in this community. We're evaluating our applicants. We have a very holistic review process. We have no kind of minimums when we're looking at our applications. So we look at everything. What we're looking for is kind of listed on the other side of the screen. When we say intellectual ability, this is really, can this applicant handle the rigor of the Kellogg curriculum? To determine that, we take a look at your GMAT or your GRE score. Truly don't care which of those two you take. We will always take the highest score. I always encourage people, if you've taken it multiple times, to submit all of your test scores. Even if your first time was the highest score and you took it 2 more times, it shows a lot of effort on your part that you tried taking the test multiple times. So submit all of your scores. We also take a look at your undergrad, where you did your undergrad, what classes you took, and what grades you received. And then we'll also take a look at problem solving and critical thinking skills. These tend to come through in letters of recommendation and your interview to help us kind of round out the picture of, can this person navigate the academic side of the Kellogg experience? Work experience is something that we really look at individually for everyone. I think there's always a fear if you're coming from an industry that you think, gosh, you must read a lot of consultants. How do I make myself stand out? I always tell people your experience is different than anybody else's, right? Nobody has had the same exact projects and managers and teams that you've been a part of. So your job as the applicant is to really tell your story. What we want to know from you is, what has your career journey been? Have you been promoted ahead of your peers? Have you been given stretch assignments? Have you moved from one company to a next, and have those moves been lateral moves or steps up? Really trying to get an understanding of what you specifically have accomplished in your career. That ties into kind of your professional goals, right? So we always talk about wanting to hear your story, where you've been, what you're doing now, and what you want to do next. And we hope that that story is pretty clear and linear and makes sense to us. Your job is to tell us that story and fill in any gaps, right? Your professional goals, what we're trying to assess and determine here is, how realistic is this next step for the applicant? Have they really done their research and thought and talked to people in that role that they think they want after Kellogg to understand if that is an achievable and an attainable next step? It's not to say you can't change your mind when you come to Kellogg and do something different than you thought you wanted to. That certainly is there. And we see that happen. But the more thought and effort you put into this on the front end, the more you're able to take advantage of all of the offerings and opportunities that are available to you at Kellogg with a clearer head. We take a look at leadership. This is both potential for leadership and demonstrated leadership. So really trying to understand what leadership opportunities you have had and how much you want to grow and learn in this space. Impact, this is learning more about you as an individual. What are your hobbies, passions, interests? How do you plan to be engaged and involved at Kellogg and really a part of our community? And then the last is interpersonal skills. This is not, are you an introvert or an extrovert? We have both of those at Kellogg. I fluctuate between the two all the time, but it is, how well do you work with other people? If you really struggle to be a good teammate, to work with other people, Kellogg's going to be a really tough place for you. We want to make sure that we're bringing in people who are going to thrive in this kind of environment. Okay, lastly, before I stop presenting and turn it over for questions, is just ways to engage with us. I put on a bunch of the, not a bunch, our 3 upcoming application rounds. So you know kind of what you're working towards if you're wanting round 1, 2, or 3. We have lots of virtual sessions and events coming up. We'll have Ask Me Anything sessions leading up to each application round. So if you have last minute questions about the application, you will have ability to get in touch with us. So would encourage you just to reach out, look at our virtual events page and sign up for more ways to connect with Kellogg. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. I told you I was fast. That was, I think, 22 minutes. So I really want to get to the questions that are top of mind for all of you, because I know our website is pretty thorough and can answer kind of the basic questions. So let's use this time to get to maybe the questions you can't find on the website.
Great. First of all, Christy, thank you for a fantastic presentation. I think, I mean, I've seen so many myself, and you were the last, so I would say that was probably one of the better presentations we've seen. Nailed all the important questions that I'm sure people had. So, and I know Amanda and Sergio have been doing a fantastic job on the comment section. Just, I mean, if you could see all the comments here, there's hundreds. So I'm glad that they've been taking care of that. So yeah, we'll start with some. I think you've done a good job of answering all the questions, but maybe getting into a little bit more detail about some of these, these questions I'm sure candidates are going to have. So let's start with one we get a lot. Are there any differences in applications between round 1, 2, and 3?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, these past 2 years have been sort of different, right? Last year was crazy with the pandemic hitting, and our round 3 looked totally different.
Mm-hmm.
This year was really a competitive year. There was more pent-up demand, right, because of all the shifts. And so this year was really different. In normal years, I tend to say there's not a big difference between applying between 1, 2, and 3 because we admit through all of those rounds.
Mm-hmm.
And my advice is always to apply when you feel most ready.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, when application volume, starts creeping up and you see competition creeping up and a lot of like really high quality candidates,
Mm-hmm.
round 1 and round 2 are really competitive. And by the time you get to round 3, it just means there's fewer seats that are actually available, especially if those first 2 rounds were competitive and people accepted the offer at a high rate. So I always tell people, try to plan ahead. If you're on a call and talking today, you already know that you're kind of interested in doing an MBA. So I would encourage you to plan for round 1 or round 2. If life is happening and you don't submit in round 2, you can still apply in round 3 and we admit from round 3. It's just that's the most difficult round, I would say.
Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming scholarships probably also impacted by that as well, right?
Yeah, we try, scholarship is tricky. It's a set budget, right? So we have a set amount of money and we will award in round 1 and we predict kind of, we have models and use tools to try to help us predict like how much we think we should spend in round 1 and what our yield will be and then what we have for the rest of the other rounds. And it's human choice. So it's not always the most predictable. I mean, it is, but if you're really wanting to be most competitive for scholarship, that would be round 1. Round 2, there's going to be a little bit less money. And by round 3, most all that money is going to be gone. So I think you just have to think about, you're applying to a lot of different schools. You have to do the pros and cons of like, who am I applying to round 1 and what are my chances of gaining admission? What's happening in round 2? And you just have to weigh all of those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a fair point. I think, well, to your point exactly, that as much as you want to make sure you're applying when you're ready, the earlier you can start to prepare that application, the better it's going to be in your favor. It's just a numbers game at this point, right?
Right. And to be honest, if people are applying to 5 programs in round 1, like that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can tell when applications just come through and they're a little bit rushed, or you've left other school names in. It doesn't mean we're not going to take you, but it does impact your chances because it's a rushed application. So you, as an applicant, you have a lot of like conflicting priorities and things to balance out. You just have to kind of figure out how to best spend your time.
Right. Okay. So moving on, I think one thing that's incredible about Kellogg is the breadth of programs within the MBA.
Right.
2-year MBA, the 1-year MBA, the different dual degree programs.
Yeah.
So, when someone is applying, are they applying to all 5 if they're interested, or are they picking one? How do they go about making that decision? And if they do make a decision, how is it evaluated? So just as the question says, the MMM, are they evaluated by 2 different departments? So if you could comment on that.
Yeah. So, I always say a Kellogg student is a Kellogg student is a Kellogg student. So regardless of the program that you're applying to, you're going to be evaluated in the same lens, right? That it's the same criteria. It's no different. So I read our JD MBA applications and I am reading it from, will this person handle the academic rigor of Kellogg? Will they fit into the community? Will they achieve their career goals? Does this degree make sense for them? My peer at the law school is reading the application from the law school perspective. Then we come together and do a joint committee. And we make decisions as a joint committee. Triple M is similar. You're going to go through the evaluation process. There's an additional essay question, but really we're looking at it through a Kellogg lens of, is this the right program and are you the right fit for that program? Mm-hmm. What we have known, so yes, we have 5 different programs that you can apply to. It's a lot. I'm not going to lie. Your job as the applicant is to pick the program that best fits you. So let's say that you're applying to Triple M. You would either be admitted to Triple M or not. New this year, what we're going to allow people to do is after you submit your application, you will have an opportunity. That's when you get access to the video essays. And you will also have then access to indicate if you have interest to be considered for a secondary program. This is not put any other program out there. This is more for people that are really, I know I want to get an MBA. I really want the Triple M program. But if I don't get the Triple M program, I've applied to all other 2Y programs. And I'd really also like to be considered for 2Y if I'm not admitted to Triple M. So there's an opportunity to do that this year, which we have not allowed in the past, which I hope alleviates some of that concern that people have of like, well, are my chances better at Triple M or 2Y? It's really going to be the same. Selectivity among all of our programs is the same, but it does allow you to pick a secondary program if that feels right for you.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense, and people will feel comforted by the fact that, look, the MMM program is so inviting and so great, but it doesn't take away from the fact that I'm really looking to do my MBA, right? So if I have an opportunity, why not? So I think that'll really help candidates a lot, and make it easier for them, right? So just they don't have to stress about it as much. But
that's kind of the hope, you know. I mean, we always have. There's always the case every year where we'll get a call and be like, but can I still apply to 2Y? Like, I really want to go to Kellogg, and I know Triple M network. So we're hoping that kind of helps alleviate some of that concern.
Okay. So keeping with the sort of the candidate conversation, people ask, are there deal breakers that you're looking at? How do you evaluate non-traditional clients? Is there a cutoff from GPA or GMAT perspective, or is it kind of every case is unique, right? So any more information on that?
I think every case is unique. There are very few applications I can think of that I've read in my time at Kellogg where there's like an immediate deal breaker. I would say work experience is probably, I don't know if it's a deal breaker. We read and evaluate every application, but your chances of gaining admission with less than 2 years of work experience is really low. So I think you better know going in, my chances of admission are really low. We're still going to read that application and evaluate it. We're going to give it the full chance, but like you need to know you're really fighting an uphill battle. I don't think there's any deal. I mean, I really don't. There's people who come, with a GMAT score that might not be at our class average, but their GPA is up here and they've been doing work that we really feel like, gosh, this person's going to be able to come in and do the work just fine. So there are no deal breakers. It's more the overall application.
Right. And someone could have the work experience to back up the, if there wasn't, best performers in the GPA or anything like that. Okay.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's really, it's very, very infrequent that you're reading the application and it's one data point that is swaying you to make a deny decision, right? It's usually a whole bunch of little things that kind of add up. And in a competitive pool, it usually is little things, right? It's usually like, well, your work experience is really good, but I have other people who have maybe slightly better, and your GPA is good, but I have people who have slightly better. And it's like all those things together that lead to a decision rather than just one thing.
And then very few candidates will kind of be flush, A's across the board, right? There's always going to be the differences between candidate applications. So
I don't know anybody who's perfect.
Yeah, exactly. So,
I mean, I will tell you, I have 2 young kids at home, and I was reading, we have the Kellogg Future Leaders Program, which is for seniors. They apply for deferred admission. And I was reading those applications, and I called my husband after my first day reading. I was like, oh, we are behind with our children. Like, these kids coming in are so amazing. But no, there's nobody who's perfect.
Okay. So switching gears kind of to talk about careers. I mean, the question is really about technology, but it could be about anything, healthcare or something. If someone is interested in a specific field, what are the specific resources these candidates can use to set themselves up for that career, especially from Kellogg's perspective?
Yeah. So the pathways is a great way. It gives you an ability to kind of focus your curriculum in an area like, so healthcare has 3 different tracks within the healthcare pathway. So it gives you an opportunity to kind of really differentiate you academically. We do what are called career treks. So you can go, they're hosted by students or created and coordinated by students with the Career Management Center. And those treks are a little bit different every year, but there's usually a tech track or a healthcare track or a social impact or an entrepreneurship track, varies every year. But that's another way to kind of early in your first year, go and start networking and getting to know kind of companies and positions that might be available to you. The Career Management Center puts on tons of like networking and company presentations for you to start learning. So there's clubs as well, and clubs will bring in speakers and have different events for you to start learning. So I think a lot of it is how much help you think you need, right? Kind of pick and choose. It's like, I want to go into healthcare, but I actually have already been working in healthcare. I would rather learn a little bit more about other stuff to diversify my portfolio. And there might be people who are like, I've been in brand and CPG and I want to go into healthcare. So I'm going to focus all on healthcare because I don't know anything, but I want to go into that space.
Okay. And so especially for individuals who are in the kind of evaluating where they go with their career, can you comment maybe on helping individuals, secure employment outside of the United States, if for whatever reason they need to consider that, right?
Yeah. So yeah, we do have students who do international job searches. There are some corporations and organizations that are going to recruit at Kellogg for international offices, right? So consulting firms tend to recruit for their international offices and locations. And some of like the bigger corporations may recruit for international offices. I'm usually pretty honest. If you know, so again, go back to that three-legged stool. Like if you're recruiting and you're like, I know I want to go to Hong Kong, just where I have to be, whether you're a citizen or not, that's where you want to be. Your search is going to look very different because you are going to be focused on what are opportunities, alums, organizations that I can target to recruit at in that specific location. Somebody who is like, I want to go into consulting and I don't care where I live is going to have a very different career search. So it is possible to get employment outside of the US. It just has to be that is your focus. And you might have to be a little bit flexible on what the role is for the location you want.
That makes sense. Keeping with that kind of application perspective, we spoke previously about clients or candidates who may have less than 2 years experience in that kind of uphill battle. What is it like on the other end of the bell curve? So individuals who are older candidates, especially when it comes to international students, generally they're older candidates. They have a lot more experience.
Yeah. So our average is 5 years, right? So it's kind of like right down the middle, 5 years of experience. There are people who come with 2.5 years and there's people who come with 10 plus years. When I'm reading somebody and they have 13 years of experience or 11 years of experience, the question I'm usually asking myself is, why in this point in this person's career does it make sense? For some people, it really makes sense. Maybe you were in the armed forces. Maybe you've been pursuing another degree and then you went and worked for a while and now you're in business as opposed to being a researcher and you want the business skills, right? So it makes sense for some people. There are some people who have a big question of, you've been working for 10 years and you're pretty senior in your career, and now you want to come to school full-time and re-recruit, and the jobs that you're going to be recruiting for are lower than the job you have now. And it's understanding and getting your head around, does that really make sense? Are you going to be disappointed with your experience and the outcome?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I guess the question is also, if you can make a good case for why you want to have an MBA, that's probably your best shot, right? So if it's a compelling case, then why would the school not give you that opportunity?
Right. It's really up to the applicant, and I always tell people, there are some pockets of the world where doing an MBA right after your undergrad is very common. And people always are worried, like, well, is that going to hurt my chances? Well, it's a question. You should address it. Like, why do you need a second one now? Why, after 5 years of working and already having an MBA, is another MBA going to help you get to where you want? So it's up to you to kind of tell us that and make that story.
That's right. That makes sense. And I think people should really take that into account. It's not, there's not much you can answer as an admissions consultant if the person themselves doesn't know why they want to apply with more than 10 years of experience.
Right.
Yeah. Any advice for reapplicants, people who have applied before and just really want to get in?
Yeah. So we see successful reapplicants every year. A couple things. I always tell people, make sure you go back to your old application after you've had lots of time and space from it, relook at it and say, look at the class profile and say, where are my strengths and weaknesses? Where in my profile do I align? And maybe where don't I align? And is there anything I can do to make sure I align myself more strongly? The second thing I tell people is make sure that your application for this year can stand on its own. Reapplicants sometimes will apply 1 year later, and sometimes they'll apply 4 years later. There's an essay asking what's changed since your last application. Make sure you use that space, right? Like, don't give me 2 sentences. Use that space to tell me what's really changed. We can go back and look at your old application. We don't always. But if I go back and I look at your old application and I'm sort of like, this person's kind of in the middle, and I'm going to go look and see what changed. And I go back and I look and I'm like, this person wrote the exact same essays that they did last year. They've just resubmitted everything. It doesn't do a lot for you, right? So you want to make sure that you are, if you feel like you picked the best essays and the best examples, I know the questions haven't changed, go ahead and relook at them. But if you weren't successful last time, something in those essays may not have come across great, right? Or may not have translated the way that you intended. So there's always more work you can do, even if it's the same example you want to use.
One question a user asked that they'd love to have your thoughts on are there any potential disadvantages for the one-year program students versus the two-year program students in the eyes of recruiters because they're recruiting simultaneously?
So great question. No, I think one-year students have to be, you have to be mindful of what you're trying to recruit for, right? I think the disadvantage could be if you're trying to get into investment banking and you have no banking experience and your two-year peers have done an internship in banking and you haven't, yeah, that's going to be a disadvantage. But you're also going to have talked to the Career Management Center to figure out if that's an attainable next step for you. So we don't see it as recruiters having an issue with kind of program differences at all.
Okay. Just quickly switching gears to the GMAT versus the GRE. Is there a preference for either within the GMAT? Is there a score you're looking for?
No. We put up our class profiles so that everybody can know kind of what the average is, and then kind of where you fall within the average. There's truly no preference for us. They're different tests. Some people might do better on the GRE than they do on the GMAT. We take a look at the GRE as the GRE, right? It's not the conversion to the GMAT. So we're looking at your percentiles and your subscores, and we're looking at that test alone. So it's truly up to each applicant to take what they feel they're going to do best at.
Great. We have time for maybe one or two more questions. One question that I think a lot of people ask is, what is the experience outside of the actual core MBA? So what is it like to experience life outside of the MBA, and how does Kellogg support that experience, right? I mean, you guys are in a fantastic city, but people may not know about what opportunities there are.
Yeah, I mean, I think our students live their best lives when they're at Kellogg. My husband was a graduate of the program, and we still look back so fondly on those memories. We had a kickball tournament that went on for like 4 weeks in his spring quarter. We hosted dinner parties with different groups of friends. We had a standing, I think it was the first Wednesday of every month, there was one dinner party with the same group of friends, and it rotated houses. I think our students do a ton within the kind of Kellogg community and are active in clubs and organizations and as leaders, but they're also active and engaged in kind of their social community and the Evanston community. My husband coached a YMCA basketball team for 2 years of youth boys, and it was like one of his favorite things he did. And so I think, our students are they're pretty lucky. I think they all realize that this is a finite time in your life where you're not going to be working and you're in school, and they really want to take advantage of trying new things and being engaged and active, because after this, your career is going to be the thing that's, really going up. You're not going to have that time back. So I think our students really take advantage of the opportunities, and the school supports them. We let our students be really active and take on, if we want you to grow as a leader, we need to give you the space to have that experience as a student. And so we give our students a lot of space and leeway to take leadership opportunities, to, if they're unhappy with a part of the experience, to share their voice and come up with ideas to how to make it better, right? So we support the students a tremendous amount in kind of their creating their Kellogg experience.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's what we have all the time for today. I want to thank you, Christy. You've been fantastic with all the questions, and the presentation was phenomenal. I know Amanda and Sergio over there at the YouTube have their work cut out for them.
Good.
Is there any way applicants can reach out to Kellogg to learn more about any specific questions or profile evaluations?
Yeah. So we don't do profile evaluations. We have on our website right now, every month we're doing 5 information sessions, 1 for each of our programs. So if you're trying to decide between programs, go to that info session. And then we're also doing office hours for all of our programs, and 2 for the 2Y program, since it's a bigger audience, where it's just an admissions officer and we open it up to an audience to get kind of more specific questions answered. So lots of ways to kind of more specifically, and you can always send an email to our team.
Great. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time, Christy.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank
you coming
you.
out and answering all the questions. And it was a pleasure to host you and speak with you. Looking forward to inviting you again next year, of course.
Thank you. Yeah, this
Good
was
luck
a
with
great,
that.
we love this event. So thanks for including us, and best of luck to everybody.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.